And here we go with punctuation video number 3, the third and final video in our series of punctuation here. And this one is about apostrophes. The things to know for this video are: what are the 3 ways an apostrophe is tested? 2, know the 2 apostrophe tips that I will give you. And 3rd, know what tricky plurals are and be ready to give a couple examples of those. All right, I'm going to start with the apostrophe tips. Tip number 1, apostrophes are not for pluralities. They're not for plurals, okay? These tips are really about kind of trick answers here. And so you see here in front of you a couple of wrong ways that this could go. It says the Thompsons are here. Down below it says the Jets will fly over the stadium. In both cases you have plural words and an apostrophe on them. Now we're going to learn that apostrophes are only for showing possession of something, and then they can also be used for contractions. Well, neither of those are going on here. And so this is one trick you have to watch out for. This is likely going to show up somewhere on the test when you take it, even if it's just one answer choice, where they will put an apostrophe on a word for no other reason than it kind of looks good because that word is plural. But that is the wrong use of an apostrophe. So off to the right, you see the correct form: no apostrophes in those sentences there, because there is no example of possession going on. There's no contraction there, so we don't want the apostrophe there. Apostrophe tip number 2, apostrophes are not for possessive pronouns. Possessive pronouns, they're possessive already, and so to put an apostrophe on them, it's redundant. It's not needed. And so we have a couple examples off to the left over here of possessive pronouns: theirs, ours, hers, his, yours, its. And off to the right you can see some examples of the wrong way to do this. And so remember this, that you cannot use those apostrophes on those possessive pronouns. One note that I would like to exaggerate here is the word its at the bottom down there. The way you see that, its, that's the possessive pronoun. That's the correct form of that word. But there's a couple other forms of this word that's used, okay? And I see this word a lot on the test. It's really the most tested of these possessive pronouns. And one good way to use this is it apostrophe s, which is your contraction form of the word it is, or sometimes it has. And the next thing to know is that its apostrophe, it does not exist. Now we already see that off to the right. That's not going to be good. However, I did just want to show you this one more time because I do see that in the answer choices a lot, its apostrophe, and I see students pick that one a lot. And so I want you to be careful about that one in particular right there. Okay? Now, the first way that apostrophes are tested are with contractions, and these are really some of the easiest questions on the test. I've not seen a lot of students that have had trouble with this. However, we do want to be ready for this. And so I will go ahead and look at my answer choices here. And remember, that's always our first step, looking at the answer choices so we can see what we're being tested on. And remember, there's some added benefits here, that as we're scanning those answer choices to see what it is we're being tested on, sometimes we can pick up on some of the things that we've learned that show up in bad answers. And already in C, I see one. So remember, we just learned this, that its apostrophe does not exist. So I can get rid of C right away. I don't have to take time to consider that answer choice at all. And now I can move on to the other ones. And so what's changing there? Well, I do see a question mark in a couple of them, in A and B, and in D I see a comma. And so I've got 2 group 1s and a group 2. And so we've already learned our punctuation method. I think I could go at that here. I will go ahead and read everything before the punctuation. It says, don't you like the fall? Well, that's a complete idea. I'll read everything after the punctuation. It says, it's been a long summer. That is a complete idea. And so I'm going to need a group 1 punctuation, which tells me that answer choice D is out. Now what's the difference? Well, I have the two good forms of the word it's, its, and then it apostrophe s. And as I read this, I always want to remember, we always want to expand out your contractions as you read them. I know these questions are pretty easy, but that's my main point. That really should help you out. And here I can read, it has been a long summer, and that makes sense. And so that's the answer choice I want to go after, the contraction form. I don't want the possessive form up there. Nothing's being possessed in this sentence at all, in this idea. And so answer choice A is out, and B is going to be the right way to go here. The second way that apostrophes are tested is really just the existence of the apostrophe. Should it even be there or not? And so as you find apostrophe questions and you're looking at the answer choices, on one particular word, sometimes you'll see apostrophes there and sometimes you won't. And that's going to be one way you'll know you're being tested on apostrophes. And I see that happening here in answer choice A on the word schools. There is no apostrophe, but it does show up on the other three answer choices in B, C, and D. And so the first thing that I need to do is check to see should the apostrophe be there or not. And to do that, always check the word right after the word that has the apostrophe. That word has to be something that can be owned or possessed or had by the word with the apostrophe. And so in this case, I have schools and students, and I ask myself, can schools have students? Well, sure enough, they can. So that tells me that I do need the apostrophe on the word schools, which in turn tells me that answer choice A is going to be no good. All right. Now in B, C, and D, what are the other differences here? Well, in B and D, I see an apostrophe S. In C, I see an S apostrophe. So here is the third way that apostrophes are tested. Apostrophe S or S apostrophe. Which one should it be? And I want to take a quick look at this and get to understand this a little bit better. Well, up to the top left there, you see singular nouns get apostrophe S. And to the right, you can read plural nouns get S apostrophe. And so what's the difference here? Well, the examples down below will show us that. On the left, it says the school's students. Now you notice the word the, and so that indicates there's one school. Off to the right, you see some school students, and I changed the word, I put in some, because now that indicates that there are more than one school, that there is more than one school there, okay? And so I need S apostrophe. And that's a very important thing to remember. You know, we already learned that apostrophes do not show whether a word is singular or plural by themselves. So that word schools, we don't know whether that's singular or plural just by looking at it. So remember, you always have to find another word somewhere in your sentence that will indicate whether, in this case, the word schools is singular or plural. Well, that's the difference with the words the and then some here. The shows we have a singular word in schools, which we're just talking about one school, so we get apostrophe S. And some, again, shows that we have more than one school, so we get S apostrophe. All right. Now, last thing on this note is that tricky plurals get apostrophe S. So we already said plural nouns get S apostrophe, right? But these plurals don't. They get apostrophe S. So what's the difference? Well, tricky plurals are plural words that do not end in S. And down below you see a couple examples of these with mice and geese. And in general, animals, their plural form, they're really good at doing this, at being tricky plurals. And then you can see other words that they're men, women, and people. One very popular word on this test is the word children. And so what are the bad forms of this, and what's the good form of this? Well, we can see children's S apostrophe. You don't want that, so don't go after that. And children's with the apostrophe S is going to be the right way to go. So going back to our question here, now with what we already know, we can determine that C is going to be no good. It's the school, one school. And so I've got to get rid of C because I need an apostrophe S. Now with B and D, what's the difference? Well, we have in B no apostrophe on the word students, and in D we have the apostrophe there. And so we're back to that second way we're tested, should the apostrophe be there or not. And so I've got to remember, look at the next word. So in this case, I asked myself, can students have a were? Well, obviously this makes no sense. That can't happen. And so I do not want the apostrophe in this case. So answer choice D is out, and B is going to be the right way to go. So when apostrophe questions show up, this is really all that you need to know. Where this may have been confusing for you before, hopefully we should be good to go, and really you should be an expert on these questions from here on out. So thank you for watching.